Hey guys, Sherm here, and today I'm going to be testing the Koenigsegg Gemera on the new track Buenos Aires in the new Drive Syndicate 4. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already, and be sure to check out my Furum Clips channel, as well as my Purple Team Discord. Links to those will be in the description, and I hope you enjoy these races. Now I want to clarify a couple things about this video. It will primarily be about the new track itself, Buenos Aires. That is because I'm probably going to make a separate video about both the Gemera and about the Drive Syndicate once I get more information about that. It just so happens that one of the only places where you can actually drive in this track right now is in the Drive Syndicate with this car. Now, you may notice this first race here is a little bit different. This is one of the max free try races that I got at the beginning of the season, and I decided to play that so you could see what the max Gemera was like on this track. The rest of the races in this video are going to be with the 1-star Gemera that everyone gets at the beginning, or at least gets to play in at the beginning of the Drive Syndicate. Of course, I will be giving some of my thoughts on the Gemera and the Drive Syndicate 2, but I want to now talk about some of my, first impressions of Buenos Aires and how I felt about it after driving more. So my first impressions was that it was a very beautiful track, honestly one of the better looking tracks in the game. It's set in mostly colorful environments with the sun low on the horizon, allowing the rays to come through the buildings and the clouds, and I honestly just think it looks really good. Now, in terms of the track layout, we were promised, or not really promised I guess, but GameLoft said that it would be a more top speed oriented track than Auckland. That is ever so slightly true, particularly in this section right here, where you can gain a lot of momentum on these ramps and it is quite straight. However, most of the track, as I'm sure you saw back there, is not really like that. There are a ton of 90-degree turns, sometimes in even closer proximity to each other than we had on tracks like New York, which makes it very difficult for high top speed cars especially, and even more especially ones that don't have the best drifting, to be able to get around them without hitting the side. Even the Gemera, which has quite good drifting because of its high top speed, there are certain turns that you simply cannot get around at all without hitting the side and losing a bunch of speed, at least from what I've discovered. The track that I just played that was a max free try, I tried probably 20 or so times, something like that, a couple dozen, and every single time at that one place in the town where there is that really quick left turn, then right turn, then left turn right after one another, I hit the sides on those every single time, and I really can't see much you could do about that. I'm sure maybe somebody will figure out a way to wall ride in some way, but if they're so close to each other, you can only wall ride around like one. The next one you can't wall ride around. So that is by far my biggest issue with the track. One of the things that I really like about it is just the variety of places and settings that you have within it. Like, you have this town here, then you have this really cool big coliseum that you go into, which is, I think, my favorite place on the entire track. With this really high barrel you can go on to see a lot of it and then somehow bounce and not die down at the beginning. I would have probably died there at other times. And we also have at one place kind of like an under construction stadium or something like that we're coming into right now. You see all the cranes and stuff and all the dirt and everything down on the lower section. That's just really cool to me, and I'm glad they were able to incorporate a lot of different things that you might see, I guess, inside of Buenos Aires. To me, this track reminds me more of New York than almost any other. The lighting is somewhat similar. You have the same kind of thing where you have a lot of 90-degree turns, where it's like mostly twisty, but there are some decent straight sections. It just reminds me a lot of New York, but even slightly more tight. I can see fast accelerating cars, like the Gemera, being some of the best cars to use on this track, especially after the turns that you can't really get around without hitting the side. Having a great acceleration will really help negate some of that speed loss. There's one little thing I noticed after the fact when looking through these races in my editing process. Over to the left here, you can see a little shortcut, which I don't think I saw on any of the other variants, which would probably save you from some of the speed loss of going around that 90-degree turn. And then you have the section here that you go on when you do not go on the bridge over to the right. Now, I think the bridgeway may be slightly longer in terms of distance, but you're able to keep at your top speed. So I could see this being one of those situations where in high top speed cars going on the bridge is better, but in low top speed cars, or ones that can handle well, possibly going the other way is better. I do not know about that yet though, as I've only tested this car on the track so far, but I could definitely test some others on it. So we know that the Gemera has great acceleration, but what about the the rest of its stats? Well, top speed, arguably the most important one, caps out at 269 miles per hour for the Max Gemera. Now, I didn't really pay attention to what it is for the 1-star Gemera, which you are seeing in most of these races, except for the first one, which was at max. So I guess you can kind of use these races to compare how it is at low stars versus high stars. Now, its handling and drifting are both pretty good. Neither of them is the best. As you can see, its drifting wasn't quite enough to make it around that turn without drifting, but most curves and stuff it can get around just fine, especially when it's not at a super high top speed. Our last stat, the Nitro, is not very long, which is somewhat unfortunate, but thankfully the great acceleration somewhat makes up for that. Now, how about the Drive Syndicate itself? Well, I don't have too much info about it yet, but I will tell you what I do know. So you get the key at the very end of the Drive Syndicate at 1 million Syndicate points, or whatever they're called. The other cars in the event are the Saline S1, the Gallardo, the GTR50, the GT by Citroën, and the Bugatti Divo. Now, in order to get the Gemera, minimum, you will need a 2-star Saline, a 3-star Gallardo, a 3-star GTR50, a 4-star GT by Citroën, and a 4-star Divo. Yeah. And these are for the Hazard Level 1 races in the final section of each chapter, which will take forever. If you want to do all the Hazard Level 3 races, you need to have pretty much all those cars maxed out. Not golden, but still at full stars. This means that, in general, it is set up the same way as the third Drive Syndicate. In fact, I could probably reuse, or I guess make a copy of my Drive Syndicate 3 spreadsheet whenever I get information about this one. Because just like before, we can only buy a certain number of Syndicate coins with tokens, the rest costs real money. So I hate to break it to you, but I think we are in for another not so great Drive Syndicate, to put it very lightly. Now, I don't know yet about the distribution of Syndicate coins and other rewards throughout the event, so obviously that will have to be taken into account, but overall, it seems to be fitting the blueprint from the LVN Drive Syndicate quite nicely, so I can't imagine it would be all that much different. I do plan to make a full video about the Drive Syndicate once I get more information, enough to fill out the spreadsheet like I did for the LVN one. So guys, thank you all so much for watching, and let me know down in the comments what you thought of Buenos Aires. Please give the video a thumbs up if you've enjoyed, and consider subscribing for more Asphalt, Forza, and other games content, and I will see you in my next video. Goodbye!